You can do this, Mr. Naruhodo. I believe that what Lord Clint Van Ziekers actually penned that day was a confession. A confession? Regarding the mass murderer known as the Professor and his true identity. Objection. Enough, Counsel. What are you saying? Do you even realize? A confession about the true identity of the Professor? That would mean... Lord Van Zieks, I appreciate this must be hard to take in, but it's the only explanation that fits. The killer that terrorized London a decade ago and became known as the Professor, the man believed to have murdered 5 members of the aristocracy, wasn't Genshin Asogi at all. No, you can't be suggesting. It was in fact the man believed to have been the 5th victim. Lord Clint Van Zieks himself! It's finally open, isn't it? Pandora's box. My brother. Oh, this is too awful. Poor Lord Van Zieks. I wonder, though, did he never suspect? Mr. Naruhodo? What Lord Van Zieks is a brilliant prosecutor. Is it conceivable that he didn't realize what his older brother really was? Order! Order! Order in court! Lord Van Zieks. The Professor made use of an enormous hound as his murder weapon. Tell me, did your brother own a dog? Yes, he did. Balmung. He was a well-known hunting dog. People called him a giant. I don't believe this. When my brother would go hunting in the forest of grounds behind the house, he always took Balmung. After Clint's death, the creature passed away too, almost as if he were following his master. He was a magnificent hunting dog, worthy of the jewel-studded collar around his neck. A jewel-studded collar? That's right. Most sadly, some years ago now, it was stolen by a thief who broke into our house one night. A jewel-studded collar stolen by a thief. It so happens that myself and my colleagues had come across such a collar during our time in London. How could you? How could you? There was an old emblem attached to the collar too, made of pure gold. It was topped with a small crown and bore an ornate capital letter B. What? An emblem bearing the initial B? Oh my, you know it? It's the insignia of the Baskerville family. What? The Baskerville? Why is that name coming up now? Baskerville is the family name of my late brother's widow. That pure gold emblem was an heirloom which Clint acquired upon their marriage. There can be no doubt then, the collar you described was Balmung's. The family insignia of Lord Clint Van Zieks' widow. There was a considerable amount of blood on the collar when we saw it. Since we know the dog was used for hunting, it could have been from his quarry, of course. But it could equally have been from human prey. So, in fact, the person responsible for these murders of nobles and royals was a noble himself, and that threatened to be an enormous scoundrel that would irrevocably destabilize British society. My father knew that, and was using it to negotiate his way out of unjust charges brought against him. But at the very last hour, those he bargained with betrayed him, slaying him mercilessly on foreign soil. Well? Can you deny it, Lord Strongheart? 10 years have passed. And still now, the 6 million inhabitants of our great capital rest easy believing that justice was done. The thought that his anonymity remains, the diabolical murderer was caught and executed. Though not thought, whatever. Very well then, you may have the truth. Tell me then. Tell me what Clint really was. Lord Clint Van Zieks was too pure of heart. When he became a prosecutor and went in pursuit of the black roots of crime, he drove himself into a corner. He came to the uncomfortable realization that to fight the most fiendish of criminals requires one to become even more fiendish oneself. Clint. The 19th century was a truly miraculous 100 years for Great Britain, and indeed the whole world. New industry, new technology, and with the birth of the Metropolitan Police Service, new law and order. But these dazzling new developments meant that even deeper shadows were cast on society. Water sullied by factories, air thick with noxious fumes, and crime, growing daily to fit the darkness. Lord Clint Van Zieks made it his mission to combat that darkness. But as time went on, it slowly ate at his soul, until eventually he was consumed. It's ironic, really, and somewhat surprising, that the truth has once again been unearthed by a Japanese. Once again? What do you mean? 10 years ago, your father, Genshin Osogi, turned up at my office one night. So I turned down Osogi's plea, and as a result, he took it upon himself to visit the Van Zieks mansion on his own. We can only imagine now what happened between the two men. Though we know the outcome, of course, Lord Clint Van Zieks perished. I don't believe this. So, in actual fact, Kazuma-sama's father did. He made the late Lord Clint Van Zieks meet the same fate. He put a permanent end to the professor's killings by taking the drastic measure of ending the perpetrator's life. As soon as I heard, I hurried to the mansion. When I arrived, it was easy to grasp what had happened. And? What about the will? Asogi must have already taken it. Nothing of that nature was found at the scene. We had no idea of the existence of such a document at that time. I was the only person who knew of the true identity of the professor. So, I resolved to keep it a secret and to guard the secret to the bitter end. So you're admitting to it? That you were behind it all? It was you, then, who pinned the crimes on my father. I did what needed to be done in order to protect the law and order of the British Empire. Even if that meant employing an unforgivable ruse. Then it was you who arranged this fabricated evidence. I ordered that detective to take care of it, whilst keeping the truth from him, naturally. Rexton. Obviously, he opposed me at first. So that night 10 years ago, when I was attacked by those thugs in the back streets, and Genshin's ring was taken. That it was him, was it? That was Gregson and some hired help. Then the detective handed the stolen ring to Dr. Wilson, who feigned a discovery from the victim's stomach during their autopsy. And in light of that decisive evidence, Mr. Asogi was found guilty of the charges brought against him. However, behind the scenes, he had actually already struck a deal with his accusers, in which he agreed to silently accept the charges. I just don't believe that part. As far as I knew the man, my father despised such underhanded dealings. It was extremely easy to make him comply. You see, he had one crippling weakness. What weakness? Isn't it obvious? You, Kazuma Asogi. Me? He did it for me. And as I told him at the time, my motives were simply to protect Britain from the damage the truth would do. To protect this country's law and order, at any cost. Objection. I've never dared to let myself even consider this possibility until now. But in the light of all of this treachery, I have to ask. The mastermind behind the Reaper of the Bailey. Was it you, Lord Mail Strongheart? A rather brilliant idea, wouldn't you say, Lord Brock Van Zeeks? That the spirit of your late brother, that paragon of justice, should return to reap justice for his sibling. Could there be a more appetizing tale for London's masses, I ask you? What brazen... I knew that you played the part to perfection. But your role really wasn't that of some embodiment of death. No, you are London's guardian angel. An angel with bloody hands? I think not. Those who had cooperated with me already were too happy to participate in my plan. Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson. My minions worked tirelessly to ensure the finger of guilt could never come to rest on you. It's all thanks to them that you were exalted as the demigod the Reaper became. But Dr. Wilson left Britain 4 years ago when he was invited to work in Japan. That's right! So I had to employ the services of his young protege after that. Dr. Courtney Sith. Dr. Sith. So what with the execution of the Professor and the subsequent reign of the Reaper of the Bailey, I successfully safeguarded law and order in our mighty capital for the past decade. That is everything. My lords, ladies, and gentlemen, I do hereby confess, it was I who sired the concept of the Reaper. However, let me say in my defense, it was all for the preservation of law and order across the entire empire. There is no one left now who can reveal the precise truth of what happened 10 years ago. Therefore, this trial can go no further. Now, I would like to entreat all those present. Beyond these 4 walls, nobody need know the truth. Even Her Majesty must be protected from this. I trust you all appreciate the importance of my request. It is, of course, for the good of the country. Can he do this? Can the trial really end now? Hold it! I have one last question. For the accused, Lord Van Zeeks. What? Of course, I know that you're a highly accomplished prosecutor. So I find it hard to believe you didn't have any doubts at all. That you never suspected your older brother. Yes, the same thought occurred to me. It was only once, but yes, I couldn't say that I never had my doubts. My brother's sense of justice was extremely strong, perhaps too strong, I observed. At the time, there were members of the aristocracy who were bleeding the country dry for their own gain. And since they were nobles, they were untouchable. For my brother, it was a source of great turmoil. And coincidentally, at the same time, the Professor began his terrifying reign. During the time of the Professor killings, my brother did not appear to be himself. And that made you suspect? That made you suspect? Yes. But it was only once, not more. Only once? Really? Hunter wasn't the culprit. That was my conclusion at the time, and I still believe that now. Do you have any evidence to support that idea? The third victim was the Lord Chief Justice at the time. It was he who had recognized my brother's potential and trained him as a prosecutor. No matter what the circumstances, it's unthinkable that my brother could have killed his friend and mentor. That will do. Ugh. Neither Clint Van Zeeks nor Genshin Asogi still walk this earth. However much we debate this matter now, we cannot hope to reach a conclusion. But there are only two extant pieces of evidence from the time. The woebegone ring that acted as the incriminating evidence to condemn Genshin Asogi, and the 3-page last will and testament penned in black ink and left behind by the man. The wretched truth of what happened is exactly as I have explained. Later today, I will present myself at the Ministry of Justice for whatever sanction is deemed appropriate. That is all. Court is adjourned. Objection! Thank you, Kazuma. Me? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have made this 11th hour discovery. What discovery? My lord, I'm afraid. I must insist the trial continues. I beg your pardon. As the court has been reminded today already, must stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth. And to that end, one particular statement made by somebody in this courtroom moments ago revealed a very subtle contradiction. What contradiction? But all I did was ask the accused one simple question. Well, it began with Lord Van Zeeks and his recollection about his brother. But Lord Strongheart didn't permit the defendant to speak at length. I merely pointed out that we would draw no further useful conclusions here. So where on earth is the contradiction? One of them definitely just said something contradictory. It's time to identify who. It was Lord Strongheart, I'm sure of it. Something he said was slightly off. Come on, Ryunosuke. Think back over his words. Find the problem. Lord Strongheart, would you care to explain? Explain what, counsel? Among the statements you just made a few moments ago, something you said was inconsistent with a certain piece of evidence we have. Inconsistent? And whilst the inconsistency remains, the defense has a right to pursue an explanation. Ryunosuke, what? Let me warn you about the statements you are making, counsel. They may very well prove fatal. Take that! This here is the will left behind by Mr. Asogi. The 2-paged will. What? Yet moments ago, your precise words were the 3-paged last will and testament. Thank you so much for emphasizing the 3-page part. Ugh! Could it be that originally there was a 3rd page? For a moment, I thought perhaps you identified something worthwhile, but it is a mere trifle, I see. A trifle? Governor Caden! You were present when the Japanese man penned his last will and testament. What? For legal purposes, we required only his will. Objection! How dare you make that decision? I had a right to know what it said, to hear my father's final words to me. The courtroom is no place for sentimentality, counsel. My father's message. It will be given to you at the end of these proceedings. It'll be too late once the trial's over. We need to know what it says now. Even the slightest thing may give us a vital clue. My lord, the defense calls for Genshin Asobi's last words to his son to be read out loud before the court now. Your request is denied. The inevitability modern words can be of no consequence now. Objection! The prosecution agrees. The court should know the contents of that message. Every possible piece of evidence must be thoroughly examined. Very well, then, Governor Caden. You'll read the third page of the document for all present to hear. It's beautiful handwriting. Shame on you, Barry. If I could be of assistance here, I would be happy to translate the words into English for the court. Father! You are still here, are you, Dr. Mikatoba? Naturally, I consider myself a member of the judiciary, albeit a lowly one. But perhaps I should quietly withdraw after I translate Genshin's message. Your cooperation is much appreciated. Kazuma, the truth is shrouded in darkness. A darkness only our clan's great sword can pierce. Mighty Karma, twist thy head and watch them fall, all thy mortal foes. That's the end of the message, it would seem. A haiku poem, twist thy head. Father, what is Karma? The name of the Asogi clan's famous sword. A razor-sharp blade known to all, passed down for generations. It embodies the Japanese spirit. It's not known to me. It's the katana sword that was submitted as evidence earlier in these proceedings. The one won by the prosecution counsel when he confronted Inspector Gregson. All these procrastinations are beginning to dry my patience. Adjournment of this court is long overdue. Mighty Karma, twist thy head and watch them fall, all thy mortal foes. That's the proper way to use the sword, is it? Maybe I should try it. Hurts my neck, that's the trouble. Mr. Naruhodo, if I might make a suggestion, I think perhaps it doesn't mean your head. Oh. I once studied the history and development of the katana some time ago, and as I'm sure you're probably aware, the sword's head is the part at the very end of the hilt. It's written as head in Japanese, but it's pronounced as kashura, I believe. Kashura? So Mr. Asogi's words really mean twist the butt of the hilt? You don't think... Ah! Look what's inside it! Is that a tightly wound sheet of parchment? Scarlet ink! It's written in scarlet ink! I penned this, my last will and testament, in the final moments before my inevitable and willing death. This is it, isn't it? Mr. Naruhodo, look at the signature at the end. Clint Van Zeeks. And the date. 10 years ago, on that fateful night. So for 10 years, it has been silently concealed inside Karma, and nobody knew. The last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. Wait. Oh my goodness. Look at this. This is unbelievable. As the presiding judge, I have been as accommodating as possible with the will of the courtroom. However, despite all that, no new information has come to light. In pursuit of justice, Lord Clint Van Zeeks tragically lost all sense of morality. When he murdered his former mentor, clearly he was already devoid of his normal faculties. Objection. How dare you! I refuse to believe that of my brother. Too much time has passed. We cannot ever hope to know more than we do now. Especially since the alleged will that he penned in his final moments appears to have been lost forever. Ugh. Lord Strongheart, you appear to be in something of a hurry to wrap things up. I wonder why. We've heard you say time and time again during these proceedings that everything you did was in the interest of protecting British law and order. And I stand by that! Without the Reaper, we could have never achieved the reduction in crime the capital has seen. Objection! What about Inspector Gregson, then? And Dr. Wilson? They were no criminals. You used them to achieve your ends, and then you had them killed. However you dress it up, there was nothing fair or just about that. Lord Strongheart, what exactly is it that you're hiding? Dr. Mikatoba, were you not to quietly withdraw after the translation of your former associate's will? In this courtroom, no argument carries weight unless it is supported by evidence. It would seem that the defense has no more evidence to present. In which case, I hereby order all discourse from these proceedings to be struck from the record. This is my last chance. Mr. Naruhodo! I have to present some decisive evidence now, when it's all over. But can I? Wait, my lord. As it happens, the defense does have evidence to present. What? Don't be absurd! There was nothing of relevance remaining from the time! Objection. It's high time that you realize something, my lord. This gentleman has an uncanny habit of producing evidence at the final hour that had escaped everyone else's attention. Nonsense! What is it, Ryunosuke? What do you have? I dare say, the final, decisive piece of evidence that will reveal the whole truth about this rotten tale. How can you... Decisive? Well, it would appear that there's no escaping it now, my lord. Let it be so, then. Present whatever you think may have that can settle this decade-old enigma, if you're capable. Take that! There was a single piece of evidence that can clarify what really happened 10 years ago. The last will and testament of Lord Clint Van Zeeks. Ha! How wonderfully astute observation, I'm sure. But in case it had escaped your notice, that document was lost long ago. That's right, it was. Only... I have it right here. Discovered just moments ago. Impossible! That can't be! Everything that happened comes back to this will. This document. It's a key that will unlock the entire mystery. My brother's last will and testament. Where did you find that? It was rolled up inside this. Inside Karma? That ultimate weapon Genshin Asogi attained has lain undisturbed in the hilt of this sword all these years, just awaiting for the right time to emerge and reveal the truth. The signature and seal certainly look official. My god, it's true. It's my brother's handwriting. There could be no mistake. I forbid the content of the document from being read aloud! Do you hear me? I strictly forbid it! Objection! You can't do that, my lord. This document could explain everything. That document could literally destroy the meaning of justice in this country. I demand that you hand it to me at once! Why? What are you trying to hide? Could it be that you already know what's written in this page? What are you implying? Court is adjourned of immediate effect! Clear the courtroom! Objection. Do that, my lord, and you will suffer a fatal blow as Lord Chief Justice. I beg your pardon? Forcibly ending a trial without good reason, and not just any trial, a closed trial by order of Her Majesty the Queen. To defy the monarch's will is treason! Well, well, my lord. It would rather appear as though proceedings aren't going to go quite as you hoped. You fools! Go ahead, Rinosuke, read it. The prosecution gives its full support. Very well, then. No. For God's sake. No! I pen this, my last will and testament, in the final moments before my inevitable and willing death. The hour is 11 p.m., and I sit at my writing desk in my office. My good friend Asogi stands at my shoulder. He has expressed his intent to invoke the dying ritual of the duel, that I may depart this world with honor, an honor of which I am utterly undeserving. The Japanese are a truly merciful people. I, Clint Van Zeeks, Lord of the Manor of the Van Zeeks estate, hereby confess to the following. I am the killer who has come to be known in society as the Professor, guilty of 4 counts of murder. I will not be here to discuss the corruption rife among the aristocracy, which is to me, is one of them, so apparent. However, 6 months ago, I took the life of a member of the House of Lords at the heart of the depravity. A demon who has habitually sacrificed a common man to further his own interest, abusing his position of power. The law is impotent against such vile avarice. Only a fellow demon can rid society of this menace. That demon was my quarry, upon whom I willingly set my great hound. But though I am a hunter of some experience, I am a poor felon, it seems. My guilt was at once recognized by another, and I became subject to his extortion. He held over me the threat of exposing my wicked crime to my beloved wife and brother. Under that threat, I have done this man's bidding for months now, killing those he demanded I kill. As I watched my former mentor perish before my eyes at the jaws of the hounds I commanded, I realized that I had lost the last shred of decency within me, and sunk to the level of a wild beast. There was no path back to the light, be it I or my dear friend Asogi who dies this night. I am eternally damned. To my extortioner, male Strongheart, may you feel the jaws of the beast at your throat every time you swallow. So now we know. Yes, Clint Van Zieks was a murderer, but somebody was directing him and naming his victims. His extortioner, Lord Male Strongheart. It was you! Lord Strongheart, a moment ago, you claimed that what the court has just heard could destroy justice in this country. But you weren't trying to protect justice at all. All you were trying to do was conceal the secret of your true nature and the countless lives you sacrificed up until now. It just didn't make sense to me that the third victim, a former Lord Chief Justice, was my brother's benefactor, the man of lofty principles. As I said, Clint had no possible reason to kill the man. But you did, didn't you, Lord Strongheart? To eliminate the man who stood between you and the office you set your sights upon. So you used your own hunting dog, Lord Clint Van Zieks, to take him down. It had to be done. London's unsavory shadows are deep, and the arm of the law fails to reach their depths. Crime must be cut off at the roots! But the Lord Chief Justice at the time couldn't see that. He was weak. Lofty principles, you say? Tantamount to cowardice, if you ask me. Which is why I took his place, in order to fight the crime he was allowing to spread like wildfire. By murdering the man, the Reaper, the Professor, the name makes no difference. As I've explained countless times already, it was all done for the furtherance of law and order in London. Objection. Are you going to legitimize the murder of my father now too? Ah, Genshin Asogi. Well, that was unfortunate. I had fully intended to send him back to Japan, as we agreed. I don't believe you! It was you, wasn't it? You killed him! No, it wasn't me who took your father's life. Then who? On the night following his mock execution, I went to Logate Cemetery at 3 in the morning with Jigoku. Judge Jigoku? There had to be a collaborator on the Japanese side to manage Asogi's treatment after his repercussion. Jigoku had fierce ambition. It made him easy to manipulate. 10 years ago, after he stood trial for the destruction of the witness stand, I had worked with him. When I told him the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs could be his, he couldn't agree fast enough! Seshiro, you fool. As you know, Asogi escaped the prison in a closed casket and was subsequently interred. We intended to dig him out of his grave before he ran out of air. But sadly, all did not go to plan. There was an unexpected visitor to the cemetery with his own ideas about digging up graves. A man who witnessed what nobody was supposed to see. Enoch Trevor. Of course, I knew grave robbers frequented London cemeteries. But that grave, on that particular night, Jigoku shot Asogi from the shadows. The grave robber was so close, the blood sprayed over his coat. He fled as fast as his legs would carry him. Then Jigoku and I put Asogi's body back in the grave from which he had just emerged. When I later learned of the waxwork model's presence at the scene as well, I made her swear to 2 things. Never to remove the professor's mask, and never to speak of the events of that night. And what, you just didn't kill her? That girl scares me. And with that, the secret was buried along with Asogi's corpse. So, now you know what really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night. It was Jigoku, your Japanese acquaintance, who killed Asogi in the end, you see. He claimed to be the man's friend, but when push came to shove, he pulled the trigger. Just before Mr. Jigoku left the courtroom earlier, he said that the assassin exchange proposal was a demand from his British counterpart, not a request. So you coerced him too, using what happened in the graveyard. By that time, Jigoku was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, negotiating international treaties with Britain. You can imagine what would have happened if it came to light he murdered a compatriot 10 years earlier. He would have lost everything. I merely reminded him of that. How do you sleep at night? These past 10 years, I fought tirelessly with the darker recesses of London's criminal underworld. And I've used whatever means necessary to ensure that justice prevails and law and order reigns supreme. Objection! That couldn't be further from the truth. The fact is, you haven't fought crime at all. How dare you! I saved Clint Van Zeeks from dishonor and his death. Objection. Whilst behind the scenes, you systematically buried anyone who stood in your way. And then, you made my father take the blame. It was unavoidable! It was the only way to protect our justice system and public order! Let's not forget the others you had killed as well. Setting the defendant up as the Reaper to cover the truth behind the murders of countless more. That's enough! Do you have any idea of the conniving that led to the acquittals of those wretched criminals? We had to fight fire with fire! Our courts can't function without a Reaper! Can't you see what I've done for this country? This has been my struggle! Objection! You've done nothing! It's Lord Van Zeeks here who worked tirelessly and justly in court while enduring the disgrace of the Reaper name. And Inspector Gregson, fraught with anguish upon having sullied his hands who had decided to do the right thing. Not to mention Genshin Asogi, who risked his life going in pursuit of the truth you tried to hide. No, the darker reaches of London's underworld were largely filled by you. You little... When will you get it through your thick skulls? That was all for Queen and country. I'm tiring of that excuse. You've consistently twisted the truth for bargaining power to make others do your bidding. Nothing more. People who willingly twist the truth and coerce others have no right to call themselves part of the judiciary. I strongly suggest you don't ever talk of justice again. Got my voice, man. Love this, my voice. Well, well, well. Dear me, my good fellows, dear me. How well-deserved round of applause, I think, for quite a marvelous performance. What are you talking about? Oh, wrong button. Those delightfully grave expressions. That beautifully pronounced Queen's English. Really, our friends in the Far East are quite the picture of industrialness. You fraud! Keep your mockery! Please, don't misunderstand. It really is exactly as you've both said. What are you trying to say? I have occupied the darker recesses of London's underworld and, how did you put it? Done nothing? I confess it's all a little embarrassing to have it pointed out to quite so starkly, but yes, I really have done nothing, which means I can be indicted for nothing. No? What? Ugh. It's true. Personally, I have committed no crime. I've merely been surrounded by fools who've acted very rashly indeed. Objection. You can't get away with this. You constantly preyed on people's weaknesses. And what? Threatened them? Are you sure it wasn't just bargaining? I would like to address all the good lords, ladies, and gentlemen of the judiciary here present. You all know of these darker recesses in our great capital, and deep down, I believe you also know that to fight those who dwell there require at least some of us to occupy the darkness ourselves. So let me appeal to your good sense now. Consider the situation with me. If this catalog of horrifying revelations were to become common knowledge among the 6 million inhabitants of London, what would happen? To learn that the infamous murderer of royals and nobles was a respected member of the aristocracy himself. That evidence was fabricated in the scapegoat's trial amid secret negotiations with prosecutors to effect a jailbreak. That the Reaper of the Bailey was an organized group of assassins managed by a Scotland Yard inspector. And finally, that it was all masterminded by the Lord Chief Justice himself. If the general public of Britain knew the truth, all faith in the police and prosecutor's office would be completely lost, without doubt. Public order in the capital would completely break down. We'd be cast into lawless days of the last century. Precisely! As it was 100 years ago, when 1 in 10 of the population were criminals. Think what we've accomplished since then. A public policing force, a comprehensive set of laws. And if we want to continue to protect this new era of law and order, I say again, we must at times occupy the darkness ourselves. We have successfully identified and apprehended the man responsible for taking Inspector Gregson's life. That is all that was expected of this trial, and these other matters that have been discussed will be eliminated from the minutes of these proceedings in the interest of preserving law and order, and protect Her Majesty the Queen, of course. Well, my lords, ladies, and gentlemen, what say you? Are you hearing this? This is the will of the British judiciary? For your rousing response, friends, I express my heartfelt gratitude. Therefore, in accordance with the overwhelming wishes of the court, the record shall be erased. You have to expect the man's ability to turn a situation in his favor. Lord Strongheart really is a master of manipulation. If conclusively proven his guilt, yet still he managed to evade justice. I just don't know what we can do. Ryunosuke, it looks like the trial really is going to come to an end now. I'm almost out of options, I think. There's really only one path left open to me. Yes, and as I know only too well, the only thing that carries any weight in court is hard evidence. But, Mr. Naruhodo, what evidence is there to use at this stage in the trial? I have an idea. I don't know whether anything will come of it, but if there was ever a time for using this particular item we have among the evidence, it's now. Take that! Oh my! Yes, Mr. Sholmes asked you if you had that with you earlier. You've exposed all of what Strongheart's Wand is doing now. I have no doubt that Mr. Sholmes had already deduced exactly how the truth would unfurl. So I think it must be time for the great detective to take center stage, don't you? Yes, absolutely. Let's take the hair by the ears then, and heave! Alright, here goes. Heave! Ow, 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 ow! My dear fellows, must I remind you every time? A gentle tug will suffice. Mr. Sholmes, you're looking quite the wrong direction, Mr. Naruhodo, because I'm over here. Ah! Mr. Naruhodo, he's... It's Mr. Sholmes! I wasn't expecting you back, Sholmes. Delighted to be here again, Lord Strongheart. What? What is the meaning of this? Bailiff! Seize him! Put that man in irons! This is a closed court! You've been warned once already, man! I'm afraid your efforts are wasted. You see, the great detective you see before you is composed entirely of light and shadow, an image, if you will. Mr. Naruhodo, I must congratulate you on your fine deductions. Mr. Sholmes, what on earth is... Are you familiar, I wonder, with the invention known as the telephone? Well, yes. I hear that some public telephones have been installed recently in Tokyo. The sound of the speaker's voice is converted into an electrical signal and transmitted instantly to another place. Quite. Sounds are transmitted, so could not images keep them company, I mused. Alice and I did some modest experimentation to develop such a device specifically for this very day. Modest experimentation, Mrs. Sholmes? What a modest description. And somewhat incidentally, I thought we might as well just transmit an entire scene. Somewhat incidentally, Mr. Sholmes? Now you're just being immodest. Do you mean to say you're not actually here, Sholmes? Ah, I knew my trusty partner would have no trouble grasping the concept. Except he's grasping to stand to steady himself after your shock arrival. Poor father. I would have hoped he might have been forewarned, being the great detective's great partner. Leave my courtroom at once! Get out! Or I swear to you! Dear me. You, on the other hand, Lord Strongheart, appear to have a very poor grasp of the situation. Allow me to reiterate, I am not here. Which would, I hope, lead naturally to one asking, where exactly are you? The very question I was awaiting. I am at present enjoying the air in a rather splendid garden. A garden? Not just any garden, you understand. A garden at Buckingham Palace. What? You can't be! Buckingham Palace? What's Buckingham Palace, Mrs. Otto? I never heard of it. Do you ever read the news, Mr. Naruhodo? Mr. Sholmes, is Iris with you there? Ah, well now, Iris is currently enjoying some tea. With Her Majesty. Her Majesty? Not just any Her Majesty, you understand. Her Majesty, the Queen of the British Empire. What? What on earth is all this about? Buckingham Palace is Her Majesty the Queen's residence in London, Mr. Naruhodo. Order! Order in court! I demand immediate silence! Her Majesty the Queen? You can't be! I mean, no! This is some sort of unforgivably distasteful trickery by some third-rate detective, that's all! Unforgivably distasteful trickery. What an apt description. A close-quarters session attended by elite members of the judiciary is a rare event. I presumed that Her Majesty would be more than a little curious about the proceedings. So, I decided to show her everything, from start to finish. Huh? You showed her? Indeed. By dint of the Herlock Sholmes remote cinematograph. You meddling! This is some kind of nightmare. Just as I appear to be standing before you, regaling you with tales of my latest invention. No doubt you've inferred that the reverse is also true. You don't mean... Her Majesty has seen and heard every moment of the proceedings. I assumed there would be no objection. After all, every trial in this country is conducted under the auspicities of Her Majesty, as you know. You! I confess, I am quite impatient to hear Her Majesty's opinion about the unforgivably distasteful trickery in which you've been engaged over the past 10 years. No! I was merely... Oh, so sorry to keep you all waiting. Vicky and I had so much to talk about. Iris, there you are. In fact, I have a little message here from Her Majesty. A message? Well then, if everyone is sitting comfortably, ahem. Forthwith, and with immediate effect, all authority previously afforded to Mayor Strongheart is hereby revoked forevermore. Furthermore, he will be prosecuted for crimes against his country in a public trial by jury in the coming days. So, it seems that Her Majesty doesn't believe we need to fight fire with fire. Justice in this country needn't be administered from the shadows at all. Male Strongheart, the darkness you fostered to conceal your despicable actions these last 10 years is a thing of the past now. After today, your brand of law and order has no future, because no longer are you the Lord Chief Justice. In the eyes of the law and of Her Majesty the Queen, you are nothing but a criminal! Adjourned! 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 What is adjourned? Well, I am surprised nobody died in that. Lord Clint Van Zeeks left a will in which he confessed to everything. When those words came out of Asogi's mouth, it deranged me completely. I knew I must do everything in my power to contain the situation. But I couldn't find the damned document. I searched the cell, but it wasn't there. Which precipitated the jailbreak plot, I presume. What do you mean? The need to obtain that will was all-consuming. I'm sure that if I facilitated Asogi's escape, he would emerge with the will somewhere on his person. But despite searching his limp body in the cemetery that night, it still eluded me. It never even crossed my mind that it was concealed in the sword's hilt. What pains me now is that my brother left this world without a word to me. I'm sorry, Lord Van Zeeks. In point of fact, I think perhaps that isn't the case. Sorry? How could that be? There was more to his last will and testament. What? As I confront the prospect of my demise, I feel bitter regret for my younger brother. Brock, you have always looked up to me, and now you follow in my footsteps to become a prosecutor. It is my fervent wish that my unspeakable deeds should not hinder your advancement. I ask not for understanding, for none can understand my depravity. I ask only for forgiveness. Asogi is a fine detective and a hunter worthy of respect. He has agreed to honor my final two wishes. The first is that this document survives. The second, I cannot commit to paper. I have confessed my sins to my wife, and she find resolution in my death. With my eternal gratitude to my Japanese friend, I rest my quill. Clint Van Seeks. Clint. Male Strongheart. You colluded with Sessho Jigoku in a criminal plot so immense it spanned the oceans. And you cold-heartedly murdered all those who knew by the truth about what happened 10 years ago. And then you bragged about it and almost got away. But why did you set about that now, a whole decade later? To ascend to the very peak. These last 10 years made me realize being the Lord Chief Justice wasn't enough. Short of becoming Her Majesty's Attorney General, I could have no real power to effect the changes needed in this country. And for that promotion, I needed to ensure no remnants of the past remained. How could you? I like everything to run smoothly, in the exact manner that I prescribe, like a well-oiled machine. And I was just a step away. And for your ambitions to succeed, did you even bother to count the number of brilliant people you have killed? Ah, Mr. Reaper, are you not forgetting something? Such as? You have very much adopted your usual prosecutor-like demeanor in the proceedings now. But the reality of the situation is that you are the defendant in this trial. Ah. However, the presiding judge would appear to have fallen from the bench, as it were. May I suggest, therefore, we entrust the final adjudication to an old friend? My lord! As a member of the judiciary, I have been following the proceedings from the gallery, and I must say, I shan't ever forget the extraordinary battle between good and evil that I witnessed here today. The darkness that has blighted justice in our land these past 10 years has at last been dispelled, thanks, in no small part, to the efforts of a bright young star from the east. Defense Counsel Naruhodo. Yes, my lord? On behalf of everyone here present in the Old Bailey, I give you my heartfelt thanks. You're too kind, my lord. The first time I faced you in court was under a year ago now. I had the faintest of imitations. Yet if British justice, so warped and twisted over its long history, was finally to no change, this might just be the man to do it. What? But at the time, I wouldn't allow myself to acknowledge that possibility. I couldn't overcome my hatred of the Japanese after the circumstances of my brother's death. Mr. Naruhodo, allow me to apologize for countless discourtesies on my part. You are a lawyer of boundless talent. Oh, Lord Van Zeeks! When I first arrived in Great Britain, I was literally a nobody. Certainly not a lawyer. The truth is, my fortunes have entirely been made by the miraculous people I've met. My best friend, Kazuma Asogi, who led me here to Britain in the first place. My loyal and ever-patient judicial assistant, Miss Suzato, helped me study to become a lawyer. The brilliant Lord Van Zeeks, who never failed to challenge his Nipponese rival. And not to mention, the exceptional master of logic and reasoning who showed me the true art of deduction, Mr. Sholmes. Saving the best for last, Mr. Naruhodo. What a relief. I'm well aware that without all these people's help and support, I wouldn't be where I am today. The truth is a guiding light that always leads to happiness. I've lived by that principle for a long time now, but actually, it's not true. The truth can also cause great pain, sometimes even leave people on the brink of despair. And for that reason, there are those who feel the need to hide the truth, who do it instinctively even. But as soon as we allow our eyes to settle on something other than the truth, the darkness takes hold. And from there grows until eventually it makes us blind to the guiding light of the truth altogether. So that's why it's my belief that we all must resolve never to avert our eyes from what is just and true. So that we can continue to walk the straight and narrow path ahead. Well, I must excuse myself now. But before I go, Mr. Naruhodo, let me compliment you on your grand opus. What? Without your beautifully composed case against Lord Strongheart, Her Majesty would have been unable to act. Thanks to you and your fellows, the haunting undertones corrupting British justice system have been silenced. Thank you very much. So, until the paths cross again somewhere. Well then, it would appear that this long trial has finally come to an end. My apologies for any anxieties caused, my lord. I'm quite sure we shall meet again here in the courtroom before long, Prosecutor Brock Van Zieks. In conclusion of these proceedings, I hereby declare the defendant, Brock Van Zieks,